Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. President Donald Trump defends his executive order cracking down on immigration. He's denying his 7-country travel ban is to blame for chaos at airports across the country this week. We have team coverage. Jason Calvi will join us with fallout from Capitol Hill. Mary Shovlin has reaction from Rome. But first, Wyatt Goolsbee takes us to the White House, where President Trump is responding to critics. Wyatt.
Lauren, the president says that his temporary ban on 7 Muslim-majority countries coming to the U.S. is aimed at protecting the homeland. He says there's nothing nice about searching for terrorists before they enter the country, but his executive order is sparking protests across the nation. Protests, court orders, and lots of confusion after President Trump suspends all immigration for citizens from 7 Muslim-majority countries for 90 days. They include Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen.
Actually had a very good day yesterday in terms of homeland security.
Trump is not backing down on his order, which also prevents refugees from the same 7 countries from entering the U.S. for 120 days. In a tweet today, he says only 109 people out of 325,000 were detained and held for questioning. Big problems at airports were caused by Delta computer outage, protesters, and the tears of Senator Schumer. Secretary Kelly said that all is going well with very few problems. Make America safe again. Later, the president tried shifting the focus away, signing an executive action aimed at cutting regulations for small businesses. But many Americans still have their sights set on revoking Trump's immigration order. This man's parents are Syrians who were denied entry when they landed in Philadelphia and sent back in a flight bound for Qatar.
I haven't seen them for 3 years, so it was really hard for me to not hug them, to not be with them.
Some have compared the order to a 2011 policy. That's when President Obama imposed additional checks on Iraqi refugees after 2 Iraqis were charged with terrorism. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer defends the order.
And being able to come to America is a privilege, not a right. And it is our duty, and it is the president's goal to make sure that everybody who comes into this country, to the best of our ability, is here because they want to enjoy this country and come in peacefully.
Spicer went on to say that you can expect this president to be very proactive in protecting the country. He says you can expect to see more of that in the future without saying anything specific. He also went on to use words like safe or safety more than a dozen times. Lauren?
Wyatt, which groups have filed legal challenges against the president's ban?
Lauren, we know that the Council on American Islamic Relations as well as the Washington State Attorney General both filed lawsuits today, and that's just adding to the mounting legal challenges that have come over the weekend.
Wyatt from the White House. Wyatt Goolsbee, thank you. President Trump has reorganized the National Security Council, removing the Director of Intelligence and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff as regular members of the council. Instead, Chief Strategist Steve Bannon will become a regular member, breaking from a structure that has existed for more than 20 years. Bannon advised Trump's campaign and was the former head of Breitbart News. Lawmakers are deeply divided on the order, with an increasing number of Republicans raising concerns. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi continues our team coverage tonight. Jason.
Lauren, right now Democrats are protesting outside the Supreme Court, urging the president to change course. They say the order betrays what our nation stands for. Another leader on the Hill, House Speaker Paul Ryan, who is a Catholic, supports the president's actions. But some in his party would like to see changes in the language. Most Republicans support tougher scrutiny for refugees, but they're urging the president to slow down and work with Congress.
One, it is not a ban. However, I think it was not properly vetted. So you have an extreme vetting proposal that didn't get the vetting it should have had. And as a result, in the implementation, we've seen some problems.
I think that we could have accomplished our objective, which is a good objective, of keeping our homeland safe if we had just implemented different screening methods, different vetting measures.
Senator Pat Toomey, a pro-life Catholic from Pennsylvania, supports increased vetting,
and I think that's what we're going to do.
But adds, quote, the initial executive order was flawed. It was too broad and poorly explained. Representative Mark Walker of North Carolina is a Christian minister. He's backing Trump.
I believe overall it does put a little bit extra pause to make sure that we are doing the vetting that needs to be done. It was just a year and a half ago when our DHS, Jay Johnson, as well as the FBI director said, our vetting isn't quite under control where we need to be. Once we get that where I believe is a good place, then I don't have a problem continuing the refugee settlement program.
Many Democrats are vowing to fight the order.
I see it as illegal, unconstitutional, and un-American. I don't think this ban will make us any safer. I frankly think it'll be a propaganda bonanza for ISIS.
A procedural vote in the Senate tonight on Donald Trump's Secretary of State nominee sets up an extended debate on Trump's action. The executive order does allow the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security to issue visas on a case-by-case basis. Lauren?
With many members of Congress that upset, Jason, can Congress overturn this executive order?
They would need to pass a law to overturn the order, but then President Trump would likely veto it. To override the veto, 2/3 of each chamber, Senate and House, would need to vote to override the presidential veto. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer tonight is asking for a vote to undo President Trump's order.
Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Jason.